if this thing's Valero, it's often because the situation is good enough you can hate us. And we helped make the situation good enough you can hate us.
I am the one, the way your son don't need to.
Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, The Bliss Life. Today's video is about Palantir and Alex Karp's interview with Kevin Warsh from Stanford University. There's a long version, which is an hour long. This video is going to be the short condensed version where I go over the topics that I thought was relevant. So definitely hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you're not already following me. Your support means so much. This community has grown in a big way. In the last 2 weeks, I went from 22 subscribers to 223 subscribers, which is huge. So thank you so much. Let's just jump straight into the video. So let's go.
Hey, well, you want to ask your questions?
All right. Yeah. So let's roll tape, clap, get going. So Alex, listen, it's great to be with you. We're going to keep this fun and informal, but I thought your attitude, your instincts were genuine. That was who how you perceived yourself. The other thing that I thought you were properly naive. Like if you had realized in 2009, 10, 11, how hard this was going to be, I don't know whether you could have mustered the will to build this incredible team, to take this on, to be so radical in the sort of product solution software.
It's been an incredibly hard journey, is what the interviewer is alluding to. And, you know, it can't be understated, right? To go from 16 million in 2009 to estimated finishing around 1.5 billion, that's a 100x on revenues almost. So that's a huge accomplishment. Alex Karp was the leader of the company when that was being done.
When we co-founded Palantir, I was supposed to be something like interim CEO. And had I known I would be non-interim CEO almost 2 decades later, I would have thought long and hard about that.
I mean, would he have thought long and hard if he knew he was going to get paid $1 billion in SBC? I mean, he's earned $1 billion in SBC, but you know, some people are mad and say, oh yeah, it's totally unfair. The stock price is doing really bad these days. I'm not down with it. The truth is, he brought the company from 16 million to 1.5 billion over 11 years. I don't think people thought that Palantir would be worth that much when it goes public. And I think that's where he got the biggest payday. Well, that's something people can't tell. You know, that's the market. The market does what the market does.
I remember I showed up in your office once. I was dressed like this, and I think you screamed at one of the guys. You said, "Kevin's here. He looks like the guy from IBM." And I was talking about, well, you know, we need like really finance controls, and you know, how you're going to sell the product and all this stuff. But I would say you certainly built that as a public company. You built all those controls. Sales isn't a dirty word anymore. But somehow you grafted that on to the strange company that can produce these products. How's that transition been, if I've got it right?
I can't believe this guy can balance a book like can't believe he balances a book just like that, you know. Like, I gotta give it a try, you know. Next time I have like a little Teams meeting and my VP calls me, I'm just gonna yeah, go ahead, you know. What's up VP? Oh, okay, it's due tomorrow. All right. Yeah, it's crazy.
So we have this for a long time, and like, you know, we've entered the government market, and then we've entered this market, and there are many markets where, you know, we are the de facto product people buy. Not all markets. What you see is, in the beginning, I thought we were differentiated in building the software and getting people to adopt it. And I do think we are differentiated in building software, again, software that becomes more and more relevant over time, and getting people to adopt the software right before they inherently understand its full value. So that's essentially, in more vulgar terms, getting people to adopt something that they will understand tomorrow better than they understand today. I do not believe we are differentiated in getting people to understand something that they understood yesterday and need to understand better tomorrow. And that because we've been, in all candor, so successful at this one thing, and because in over 2 decades of doing this, we believe no one else does what we do. It's much easier to be open and like, okay, we do this, we don't do this. And there are people who are very, very good at some of the stuff we don't do, like conventional sales. So, my essential pushback on sales was like my pushback on going public for a long time. It was like, how do you do this while maintaining our culture? My version of that was you couldn't do that. We didn't know how to do that in the 10 years ago, 18 years ago. But it seems like the thing we do is become more recognizably valuable. And that gives us a wider range of motion to also partner with people that do things but the key is, how do you do it without corrupting the internal culture that must stay reminiscent of the way it was in the beginning and rejuvenated to deal with new problems? That is a culture of product innovation and complexity. There are two pieces. What do we do as a company? Well, there's some things we're going to continue doing that we've always done. I would say, the software products you would need to deal with a dislocated world would have to be able to manage data in jurisdictions which are no longer connected, maintain software products, a myriad of them that are in your enterprise, where you are dealing with jurisdictions that are, again, disconnected, where there's a low trust environment, so you couldn't just ship the updates, you'd have to have them be verified, where the physical infrastructure you're relying on changes daily, breaks, where you would need to be able to create digital replicas of what you're doing because the complexity of the changes are just much greater than what you expected, where your underlying software that you've been relying on basically provides no alpha because it's not actually built for that world, and where you have internal workforce and political issues that also just make your daily issues much harder and mean that you have to be able to understand where you are as a company along the production and sales and regulatory and all these things that involve running a complex company that's now being kind of in the middle of glacial shifts. But it is our belief that we have a set of products that are underappreciated because the macro conditions have not arrived for their full value to be appreciated. Although very valued in many contexts, so vaccine distribution and manufacturing and biomedical research and myriad of preventive maintenance, all sorts of things that are well known at this point. And so we've been on a journey to identify startups in between, could call it half grown up companies, whether it's in the context of people building their company. We have Founders for Builders. We've invested in a lot of companies. We're going to continue to search for partners that can distribute not just our software, but knowledge of what it means when things are just dislocating. And how would you use software to do that? Now you could say, well, that's obvious, but actually it is a completely new world. There really are very few experts for what does it mean to do product maintenance when you no longer have access to your core data stack and when the assets are kind of at the edge of your enterprise and not at the center. What does it mean if you can no longer ship software to a jurisdiction? What does it mean if countries are in the middle of a near kinetic war for your supply chain? How do you get a supply chain to work if certain parts of it shut down? There's the software element where we know we have the right software products. There's the knowledge element, like how does a third party who's never really dealt with that challenge have a credible interaction with individuals that understand how to do that and then are opting for the best products on the market, which in this case will be ours. I spent a lot of my life in Europe. I speak German. I do things in French.
What things do you do in French?
I don't want peace. I want problems always.
Mostly work, to your surprise, but we power a lot of important institutions in France, and I'm very proud of that, actually. And then we're supporting founders in French, in France.
All right, so he's saying that he does work only in French. I guess that's what a billionaire would have to say when he's doing a firm interview. They did get into a new deal to work with a startup hub in France, where a lot of startups are going to get introduced to Foundry and see the benefits of Foundry. And it looks like Foundry is also powering a lot of institutions in France, which is why, if I recall, in the financial statements, France was actually segmented and shown as one of the important countries that they do business in. It was the US, UK, and France, if I remember correctly, and then the rest of the world. So it's a big deal.
I do think there's some big, like, for example, there are parts of our DoD, clandestine services, special forces that don't get the public accolades they deserve for very obvious reasons, because they're built not to get them, that have produced enormous and largely unknown results. You see this also not just in America, but in Europe, in the intel space, where I'm aware of numerous terror attacks that have massive ones that have been stopped that would have led to a completely different political landscape in Europe. And Palantir was built for this. And it would be an exaggeration to say the world rests on our shoulders. And it's, by the way, but it is scary to think how much of the world rests on our shoulders.
This is the second time I've heard him say this, where says, if it wasn't for Palantir, like, he is worried, or he is afraid how reliant governments are on Palantir Foundry to stop major attacks from happening, and how Palantir software offers so much value to these governments and institutions. And the thing is, it's not publicized, because obviously you can't publicize how vulnerable we really are. If we keep telling people, oh, there was going to be this attack, that attack in downtown, no one is going to want to go outside and spend their money. People are just going to stay inside because they're afraid to live. So governments obviously don't talk about it. And that's what he was referring to, that, all these secret successes, they're meant to stay private. And that's why people don't see the value that Palantir offers, because it's always kept under wrap.
Where I kind of agree with your more, I want to say, skeptical take, is that we are not prepared for the world we're going into, and that the adaptation, the iterative circles are going to have to be much quicker, because, in fact, there's an acceleration of dislocation.
I'm going to take a shot at your competitors for a minute. Or your would-be competitors. Some of them have a lot of nice products. It strikes me as the non-technologist, their products are narrower than yours, maybe more easily digestible, certainly more easily saleable. How do you think about, the snowflakes of the world, the Databricks of the world, and that product suite, as it were, compared to yours?
Our products are deeper than any other products on the market, have an institutional veracity that's differentiated, are doing things that are arguably more important. I don't think that's a really subject to debate. I do think what is a legitimate question is, if a product is future oriented and requires a depth of understanding of the product, and or it doesn't inherently map to selling a wrench to a pre-existing technical org, will you capture the full value of those products? So I think you can ask the critical question of various companies. You mentioned too, there are many. Are the products actually thick enough to be valuable? You could ask the question of Palantir, is it thin enough to be fully monetized? And I think both questions are legitimate. What I would say is our view at Palantir is we're very differentiated in building these products before they exist. And on the thick part, we are without competition. So then there's a question of, are we able to supply parts of our product or various products, for example, products that we're building now, products that we have in Foundry, to an enterprise that may in fact prefer something that fits into their architecture that is thinner. That gets into a very legitimate question, which is, okay, forget now. It's like, is Palantir building the product of the future, but willing to supply into the current environment?
Big point. Thicker, thinner. It's an interesting argument, but Palantir is offering thinner modules of Palantir Foundry, which is what they touched on in the last earnings call. They are offering different versions of Foundry to different clients, allowing the clients to understand the product for their basic needs, and then capturing more value by expanding and including other facets of Foundry. So that's a big point. Also, what's huge is he did confirm that they are investing in new products. They are creating new products. And that is super interesting because I did notice that R&D spend was decreasing. So it seems like they're taking advantage of what they've already set up and invested in, and being able to, come up with different iterations to head it in a different direction. So I'm very excited to see where that goes.
Environment by providing products that are more digestible into an organization that maybe it wants to go their own way and wants to buy a certain product for a certain thing, but does not want to buy all of Foundry. By the way, and so the answer in the near term has been yes, but in the future, we are going to continue to focus very much on what you're calling kind of thick, future-oriented products because they're differentiated. But then as the parts of this product become less differentiated and more, for lack of a better word, commodity, like there's 8 companies that supply them, figuring out ways to decouple the product and sell these things in a modular way, partly because there's an assumption which is just not true that is very intuitive, that if you have a full stack product, that the sums of the product are less valuable than if they were taken apart, i.e. that each part of that product is inferior to a product that's just that product. But it's actually not true at all. It's actually the opposite. And part of what we will be doing over the next couple of years is both continuing to build things that are not understood, sell them to deal with the macro conditions that you have outlined, that I agree, but also democratizing parts of our product so that people who want a different version of the product can also buy it. We're not super ideological there, as long as our core mission is to continue to be entrepreneurial outsiders in the product realm, which is where, again, we would like to continue to stay in a world where we're not competitive.
Yeah, I mean, if I've got this right, if you could disaggregate the solution into various products and you could make one product thin enough, you could just slip it under the door, then the guy who's got to buy it on the other side might say, yeah, that works pretty well. And then you're in the enterprise versus just banging on the door and saying.
The larger product is particularly valuable where dislocation happens and your institution will die. So there's going to just be an increased demand for that. But, we are in the business of building software. And if you want, and then now we're going to figure out in the future, how do you also disambiguate the products in a way that people who just want to buy parts of it can buy. And that's never been a contradiction for us. Honestly, every successful business that ends up being massively so not Palantir today, but Palantir in 5 years, what we will be, it starts with the world's most complex problem, figures out solutions for it, and then figures out a way to do that tomorrow and the next day while allowing people to buy parts of it that are arguably less complex. And that's how you build not a business that is where we are now, but a business that is 10 times, arguably 20 times bigger. People do not understand it's nearly impossible to build software products. So normal companies just buy them. Why do they? Nothing wrong with that. But why do you buy a software product? Because it's nearly impossible to build a new one. And you need to be a very specialized company. Most of these very specialized companies that do it have 10 people. We have 2,500 people, and Foundry has 400 products in it. Apollo is a completely revolutionary way of supplying, maintaining software products Edge AI products that are coming on the market, completely not understood. The way in which we deal with AI and ML, completely unique. The anti-terror products that are not part of the public view are completely unique and differentiated. And this is a company that has 2,600 people that is still producing world-class product. And that's just something that is non-existent in the world. And that's not a critique of other companies. They have a different solution by companies, and nothing wrong with that. But you have to have a very different approach if you're attacking the market if you can build products than if you can't. You're going to have to convince people that are basically not fireable because they know they're the best in the world, and they also know, unlike most people who evaluate software, that the ability to build a product is maximally unfair in the sense that really only a couple of people in the world can build the kind of products we have. And so you have to convince them, cajole them, get inside their thought process to build the product that's not just the one that they might want to build, but one that will actually disrupt the world. That is not the way it works in software. If your person who can build X product leaves, that product will stall or die. But then if you just leave it to them building it, you will get a product that is interesting, that has a total addressable market of 10 people.
And
slings and arrows are interesting. We get attacked in Europe. We get attacked in Europe for data platform financed by the CIA. It was like a small investment almost 20 years ago. But one of the things I would say is you get the slings and arrows because if the terror attack
something dark side, something CIA. That's how pretty much all of those articles go,
attacks had happened, that our software, with the help of people using it, stopped, you would not have the slings and arrows, actually. If the slings and arrows, often because the situation is good enough, you can hate us. And we helped make the situation good enough you can hate us.
I am the one, the way your son don't need.
All right, so that was an interesting video. I really enjoyed seeing Alex Karp after so long putting out a good video where he shares his thoughts. Some of the quick points that I took down, I'm going to share with you is, Alex Karp really believes that the macro direction the world's heading in is going to be something that Palantir is ready for. Palantir Foundry would be ready for. The world is becoming less and less connected. There's less trust. People don't trust each other. Jurisdictions don't trust each other. I'm thinking of, the UK leaving the European Union, so everyone's having their own little rules. The communications are probably not at the same level that it used to be. So these are all things that need to be taken into account for companies operating in different jurisdictions and intergovernment intelligence agencies that work together. The other point is that competitors are around, and how does Palantir fare to these competitors? And this concept of very thin solutions that are not ready for tomorrow, are not ready for disruption, are not ready to see a disjointed future, a disjointed institution, disjointed world. And Palantir is considered very thick, and it has 400 different modules in it. It's one of the best products. It's built for now and the future. And Alex Karp is convinced that it is not against their mantra to have modular versions being sold to customers, which they are starting to do now. Palantir is focused on building the world's best products with the world's best engineers. They're not trying to develop a thin product that only works for a limited scope. They're trying to develop a product that could be useful to the world. And that's a key distinction that Alex Karp made. He did not get into the details of, comparing two softwares or two different platforms. But what he did reiterate is we're here and we're going to be here, whereas others might not be here. Another point that I thought that was very interesting is when Alex Karp mentioned that he thinks the company is going to grow from 10x to 20x. This goes back to the Switzerland video with his employees, where he said
we crossed the $1 billion gap revenue market. There is no reason this company should not be 20 times bigger.
And today he reiterates that again. You know, he sees no reason why the company can't be 10 to 20 times larger. So that's very reassuring to hear as a shareholder that, you know, the leader still believes that there's massive growth ahead. I mean, it's his job to say that, but to hear him reiterate that is reassuring. And it does show that there's a lot of opportunities in the pipeline. Which leads me to my last point. Even though R&D spend is down year over year, it looks like Palantir is still investing in new products. So that is always good news. That is always going to pad the bottom line and help investors in Palantir get to where they want to get, which is a highly profitable company that creates highly sought out products that are useful today and useful tomorrow and useful 10 years down the line. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button, leave a comment. I love to hear what you think about this video. So thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.